Hey guys, Jennuine Love checking in for this conscious conversation. Conscious conversation. It's important to open up dialogue. That's important to have these conversations, and my goal is to have a safe space, to be a safe space where we can come and communicate about things that matter, right? So that's what all of these different videos are about. And this particular one, I have been resisting. I'm like, nope, don't want to do that one. That's not the one that I want to do, because I didn't want to feel embarrassed, and I didn't want to feel like judged, and all these different things that the ego will, tell us that will happen if we share our story. Well, I'm just really dedicated to making a difference in the world, however that looks. And for me, that's just sharing, and it's not that I have all the answers, and it's not that I'm perfect. It's not that I'm judging. It's that I'm just sharing my experience. And I know that by the nature of the universe, we're all connected. And so when we share, we do help other people. You don't have to have all of these big credentials and all of these coaching degrees. You just have to have a heart to want to serve, and you just have to be able to share. And when you do make a difference, right? So I'm just gonna wait a little second. I see some of y'all popping on now. Say hi when you pop on so I know you're here. And just give people, I see a couple of y'all. I know some of y'all definitely said you were coming, so just wait just a second. If you hear the music in the background, shout out to my music producer and one of my dearest, closest friends, Bruce Michael, also known as Prince Bruce. And his music is playing in the background. It's a really nice, meditative, relaxing, musical I Am Love, and it just repeats over and over. It's so beautiful, and it always helps calm me and center me. So that's why I have that playing in the background. And in case anybody in Facebook land is listening, I do have permission to play this during my live video. Okay? Alright, so I am going to go ahead and get started. For those who are already here, I don't want to keep you waiting, because I know you're excited to get going, and I want to honor your time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, because that lets me know that I am hearing from my intuition. And like I said, I've been resisting this particular video. And like this week, I had 3 different people, well, last week, because today's Monday, 3 different people reach out to me and share a story about the very topic that we're about to discuss. And I was like, okay, hey Mike, hey Ra. I knew at that point, okay, this needs to be talked about. It's not to embarrass me, but it's to help us, right? So the title of this conversation is, I don't even remember what I titled it, but about being with a narcissistic person. So I'm going to share a story that happened to me rather recently. And the purpose of my share, again, is to inspire and to bring light and to, get rid of the guilt and shame around this particular area of topic. I noticed that, and also the judgment around this topic, because I noticed a lot of that. So we hear a whole lot about narcissistic people, and narcissistic people is not somebody that pissed you off. It's not a partner that you don't get along with and that you argue all the time with. That doesn't necessarily mean that that person is a narcissist. You know what I mean? It's just kind of been a word that's been thrown around, but it is a real thing, and there are real traits that go along with this, and there are signs that you can look for, right? So some of the traits, again, we all have the tendency, we all have the ability, okay, to act in certain ways, which could seem narcissistic. And as I go through it, you'll see, I could have done that, I could have done that. There's a difference between having a moment of this kind of behavior versus having a pattern an ongoing pattern of this type of behavior in this relationship, in this relationship, in this relationship. Okay, so we're not talking about fleeting moments where we're like, I want it my way. We're not talking about that. We're talking about every single day, I want it my way or the highway. And we'll get into some of the traits. Let me get some water. Here we go. Okay, so some of the traits of a narcissist, and the only reason I'm pointing this out straight at the beginning is to kind of help you listening kind of determine, which if you tuned in, probably kind of have an idea. You might have had this kind of experience, might be in it now, might know someone who's had this type of experience. So we're just going to kind of get out of the way what it is and what it isn't, and then I'm going to jump into my story. Okay, so narcissistic traits are, they tend to be very arrogant, like very arrogant, not to be confused with confident, okay? They're very self-centered, self-absorbed, and this is not to be confused with self-love or having a healthy self-esteem, okay? They believe that they are more important and more special than anyone else, you know? Never do they ever take accountability for their wrongdoings or for their actions that were hurtful. Never do they take accountability for the things that they need to work on. Never gonna happen. They become very angry and unhappy and hostile when they don't get their way. When things don't go their way, you will pay. And they have, you know, ongoing issues with risky behaviors, alcohol, drugs, you know, gambling, whatever, just a lot of different addictive and risky behaviors. So that is some of the characteristics, right? Again, just because you have a fleeting moment where you're upset because something didn't go your way doesn't mean, oh my God, I'm a narcissistic person. It doesn't mean that. Again, we're talking about, this is a pattern. This is ongoing. This is a complaint that most, or let's say, this is a view that most people, hey, clear. This is a point that most people that know this person would be like, yep, they do that. Yep, they do that. So it's not like a fleeting moment. And that part is really important to understand as we go forward. Okay, so just a little bit, I'm going to share my story and then I'm going to tell you what I learned. Okay, so I want to share in detail because when I tell you what I learned, it'll make more sense. And the first thing that I want to say is that every bad situation isn't bad for you. Okay? And as we go along this live, hey Mike, you will understand what I mean when I say that, okay? Alright, so not too long ago, back last summer, I met this guy while I was at work, and the minute he came into my awareness, there was this instant, like, whoa, who is he? Not because he was oh so fine or anything like, it was just something energetically that really pulled me to him. There was like an awareness that, and I was like, do I know him? Have I met him before? Why do I feel so moved by his energy? You know what I'm saying? So that part I want you to remember because that's important. And I went ahead and connected with him. We didn't connect right away, but little text here or there. And then I started to spend time with him. And I enjoyed his behaviors initially. He was very attentive, very supportive, very funny, you know, very assertive, and just kind of take charge and make things happen. And he helped me out with some things. I was like buying a car at that time, and he helped me go and look at the car. And so he was very helpful to me at that point in time. And so we kind of developed this dating relationship, and it got pretty serious pretty fast. And we lived together, you know, almost immediately. And I started, as time went on, noticing different things, like who I was a problem It didn't matter what I did, what I said, it was always a problem. There was always something wrong with me. And you would think that I would have left then and be like, deuces, like, I'm the shit, I'm out. But there was something in my soul contract that I had to experience within this connection. And that's the part that kind of tripped me up, because, you know, you think about karma and soul lessons and things like that, and you realize you can't save anyone, including yourself, from the lessons that we are meant to go through. And that's why I said in the beginning, just because something feels bad doesn't mean it is bad, because ultimately everything is working for our highest and best good, right? So there were a lot of different signs, hey Ramon, a lot of different signs that I saw that were like red flags. And do you know what I did? I excused them, and I looked on the bright side, and I didn't want to be negative. And I was just like, let me see the good in this, and how can I look at this lovingly? Which these are all good things to do at appropriate times. Not when red flags for your boundary and your safety or your emotional well-being are being presented. Okay, that's not the time to look on the bright side, but that's a whole nother video. So I had guidance. I had friends and family that love me, that were like, okay, if you watch my videos, or seen it, a bunch of my pictures, you'll realize I was in Key West. Well, this man moved to Key West. We were in Georgia, moved to Key West, and he invited me to go. And this is after I had already seen so many different red flags. Like every person in my inner circle was like, don't go. Not a good idea for you to go. And I even had a card reading from somebody who I just love and adore and know that they are just in tune. And the card reading was like, don't go. This isn't the one. This guy is going to, you know, try to squash your freedom, and you're not going to be able to self-express, and no, don't go. And y'all know what I did. I went anyway. And that's the part that had me embarrassed to make this video. It's like, damn it, Jen, shouldn't you have known better? Like, you're teaching all of these different things. You know about the law of attraction. You know about the power to create. You know about boundaries. You know about self-love. What the hell are you thinking going down there? But I did anyway. And back to what I was saying about you can't save anyone from their own karma or their own soul's journey. This, however jacked up it looked, was a part of my soul's journey. And I know that. And I have no regrets. But I do have wisdom to share as a result of what I went through, right? Because that's the nature of life. We learn. Usually, like they say, hindsight is 20/20. Well, in this particular incident, I went down there to Key West, and I had so many beautiful experiences. And again, bringing it full circle, that's why I said, you know, everything is ultimately working out for your highest good. Even the things that look crazy, even the things that are kind of crazy, will ultimately work out for your highest good. And so while I spent time in Key West, it was about 6 weeks we were down there, or I was down there, and it was amazing. Like, I had a lot of amazing experiences, not just like with nature. I mean, I've seen all the sea creatures, you know, I've had so much fun. I went sailing, like I did so many fun things. So there was a lot of good that came of it. And also I realized things about myself that I was still holding on to. Like, I still believed deep down, like somewhere there was some residue, even after all these years of spiritual work and coaching and counseling, somewhere Jennuine Love still believed that I had to suffer for love. That I had to suffer for love. That you can't have it all. That there's always going to be some shit you don't like. You know what I mean? And I had allowed myself to believe that. So that was coming up for me. Hey, Missy, I love you. So that was coming up for me. And also, the whole mom wound was coming up for me because my relationship with my mother was so just hard, and she was never really supportive or loving in the way that I needed to be loved. I never felt seen or heard or good enough. And so lo and behold, here I am with a man who is always telling me I'm not good enough, telling me to be quiet, shut up, you know, like everything about who genuine love is, he didn't like or appreciate or celebrate or any of these things. So then I realized, okay, you have some residue. You have some mommy wound residue left that's saying, wait a minute, I have to prove myself. I have to prove that I'm good enough. And I found myself constantly saying or doing things or behaving ways or not behaving in certain ways to please him, because that was what would make him happy. But he never would be happy. He never could be happy. And I will say one thing, and that is, never is it going to be beneficial for you to like discredit or try to tone down your authentic person, like who you are authentically, in an attempt to keep a relationship, because it will tarnish it, whether the person is a narcissistic person or not. Anytime you're in a connection with somebody and you allow yourself to dim down and not be the bright you that you are, you're always going to suffer. That relationship is never going to last, ever. You know, so that was one of the things for me, is I wasn't showing up. I was allowing this person's energy to dominate me to the place where I wasn't really dedicated to my work like I have been. I did a post here and there, and I did share, but I wasn't really behind the scenes, you know, the things that I'm working on that is coming up soon, real soon. I was like kind of just letting that fall by the wayside, and I was just really caught up in this interesting energy. And you know, the tendency when things like this happen is to blame or to make the other person wrong, and that's like never the way to go. Whether you're breaking up with a narcissistic man, woman, or whether you're just going your own way from a beautiful, healthy relationship, it's never the right thing to make the other person wrong. You know, it's always the right thing to take accountability, hey Blair, for who we are and what we are, what energy we're in. And that's not saying that, oh, if you're in bad energy, you know, you're automatically going to attract bad people. But, you know, the deep down stuff, the stuff that we might not even know is there, that stuff that we have to become aware of. And sometimes, sweetheart, you won't even know that that crap is there until you end up in some crap like that, you know? And if you listen to, hey Bob, if you listen to Abraham Hicks at all, you will hear her say that there, you know, nothing comes out of the blue, it comes out of the oblivious. You're just oblivious. You've been so accustomed to just going in whatever energy you're in and not paying attention to what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and therefore what manifests. So stuff just starts coming and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And that's kind of the energy that I felt myself in. I was like, wow, I mean, I didn't know that I was like, could go this far back. Like, what am I thinking? You know, I'm Jennuine Love. I teach about boundaries. I teach about self-love. I teach about authenticity. What the hell am I doing in this relationship right now, right? Why didn't I listen to all of these different things? Well, again, everything works out for our ultimate good. And I can tell you that as a result of this type of situation, this experience that I had, you know, I learned a lot. I really, really did. And I'm just going to kind of hit the little bullet points and see if any of this resonates. Well, I did already kind of touch on some of it, which was I still had healing to do in regards to, you know, feeling good enough, that old childhood wound that we think, oh, that was back then, but if we don't deal with it, it will come up, right? So that whole feeling like I wasn't good enough, that came up in that relationship hardcore. Nothing I did was good enough. Nothing. It did not matter what I did. It was not right. It was bad. It wasn't good enough, right? So I realized, okay, so there's a part of me that's still in that space where I'm believing that BS, you know? Again, I kind of touched on this. I still had a belief that some suffering is always going to be a part of, you know, love, that you always have to sacrifice or suffer if you want to be loved. And again, that whole feeling of not being good enough. Well, I'm not the best that there is, so I just got to put up with some, you know, bull crap to be loved, or however that looked, you know. I also learned that making the right choice, you know, the most self-loving, courageous choice doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. It doesn't mean it's gonna feel good. You know, it's sometimes, a lot of times, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna like rip pieces of you out, like feel like your heart's breaking open. And usually that is because we've had an attachment to an outcome, right? And when that outcome isn't happening the way that we thought because of our attachment is there, it's like, ow, that hurts. But again, everything is always working out for your highest good, period. And nothing that is for you, that is taking away, like that transcends into something else. Like nobody that leaves your world is required to be there for you to fulfill your purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like, thank you, Anthony. Nobody is going to, you know, fix that, right? So I also learned that honoring and expressing my most authentic self is the key to having the healthy relationships that I deserve and desire. You know what I'm saying? Not being able to share who I am authentically, that's red flag number one. You know, if you don't celebrate and it's not that that person necessarily has to be bad, it's just like we're not a match. And that was, you know, that was the case. Nothing was good enough I did, right? And also this part really for me was the biggest aha, because in a church setting, in a typical Christian church setting where I spent a lot of my years, there was a lot of preaching around your destiny and your purpose and God's will, and you know, you could mess things up and you don't want to be out of the will of God. And as a result of that kind of teaching, I used to have, and sometimes honestly still do, a lot of anxiety around making decisions. And the bigger the decision felt, you know, the more important the decision felt, the harder it would be to make a decision, because I was so scared I would get it wrong. I was so scared I'd be out of the will of God and screw up my whole life and my whole destiny. And what if I went left or right? What if I went left and I was supposed to go right? What if I took the wrong path? And I would just make myself crazy thinking about, what if I F up and take the wrong path? And then my destiny's jacked. And then all of the people that I'm sent here to, you know, mentor and work with, they're going to be jacked because I'm off track. You know, I would put all of this pressure on myself, right, to make the right decision. And so a lot of people, even my highest self, would say, okay, maybe that wasn't the right decision to go there, to be in this relationship, to do this thing, you know. And what I want you to understand is that even though like I said, when my friends and family in my inner circle that love me, don't go. My card reading from somebody I love and cherish, don't go. Me in my higher self, when I was in that space, is kind of like, still a lot of confusion from the ego, but maybe just don't go. Maybe just stay here and focus on what you need to be focusing on, and you know it's not going to work, right? But I went anyway. I went anyway. And like I said, I see now that there was so much good that came of that growth in me. I had spiritual, I call them just impromptu spiritual healings, where you're just going about your business and then all of a sudden spirit just starts speaking to you. I had so many of those out there. It felt like layers and layers and layers of just old junk and energy was falling off of me. So even in the middle of kind of a hell, I was in paradise and hell a little bit, but even in the middle of that, I was being healed. And isn't that just wild? Isn't that wild that even in the middle of that, I was being healed, you know? So I learned that even when we make a mistake, right? Even when we go left, when we really were supposed to go right, all of that works out for our highest good. All of it. And that these things aren't punishment. We're not being punished, you know? Contrast is the first key to manifestation. Contrast. Contrast. Not visualization, not affirmations, not meditation. Contrast is the very first step in manifestation. Because when you know what you don't want, you are automatically sending rockets of desire, as Abraham Hicks says, of what you do want. So I know that I want a partner that's supportive. I know that I need a partner who's going to allow me to express authentically. I know that I need a partner who does not drink every single day. I know that I need a partner who can be emotionally available. So all of these different things we learn, hey Paulette, we learn as a result of going through contrast. So there's not a punishment. There's not an indictment against you. It's just learning. We're learning. We're peeling back layers. We're shedding. We're cleansing. We're unlearning crap and learning, relearning what is truth. What is our most ultimate truth, right? So that's just what I wanted to share as far as like what I learned that were like kind of the key components. And I do know a few people have reached out to me that are currently like in a relationship with a narcissistic person like right now. And I'm not a counselor by trade. I don't have all these degrees in counseling. I don't have all these things. I'm just sharing my experience. What I found to be true, what worked for me, you know, and what I learned, okay? So I would say that when you realize that you are in a relationship with a narcissistic person, there really isn't a saving of that relationship. And that part is kind of like, ow, shit, you know? And again, narcissistic is not, oh, they made me mad or they didn't do what I wanted. Like, look up what a narcissist, like, do your research. I don't have time to go through all of it in this video. Do your research, honey. Figure this out. Like, let yourself be guided. And then when you know that you are in a connection with a narcissistic person, you just got to know that you're not, one more try isn't going to make it work, you know. You're not going to, you know, do something different and all of a sudden it's going to be better. You're not going to, you know, spend a little bit more time and things will, you know, just even out. Like these relationships, like there's just, that you just kind of just have to just go. You just have to kind of like rip yourself away. And let me tell you, hard, you know? We're not going to over spiritualize this crap. I'm not. Maybe somebody else on a different video will, but I'm not going to. That shit was hard. I knew I needed to leave, but you know what I did? I kept telling myself, oh, you know, one more day. Again, back to I believe that there had to be some sort of suffering for me to be loved, right? So there was that, you know, I'm looking at the sunrise out and I'm looking at the sunset and I'm living on a sailboat and there's dolphins and sea turtles and these are all of the things that Jennuine Love loves. So I made a trade-off. I was like, oh, I can I can deal with this another day. You're not going to bring me down. I know I'm the shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do my work, whatever. I'm in paradise. So I kept making this trade-off, right? And again, old stuff. We don't have to trade our soul to get what we want. We don't have to, dim our authenticity to be able to be loved or to have the things that we want. Like, that's old news. Fake news. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. So again, if you do your research, hey Isaiah, and you find out, okay, crap, yeah, and chances are you already know, you already know. Because the red flags that we ignore in the beginning are the red flags that end it. Isn't that crazy? So, you need to, you got to get out. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And depending on your situation, you're probably going to have a lot of support. And that leads me to my next thing. You got to allow yourself to be supported. You have to let yourself be seen. Even if it's only by one other person, you have to share. And you have to be like, whoa, like I'm kind of in this predicament. And allow yourself to be supported by someone, somewhere, other than your narcissistic partner, okay? Once you get out, like this part again is like gut-wrenching. No contact. None. Not a hope you're doing good, not a happy birthday, not a nothing. No contact. None. And I tried this. I tried to not do this. I tried to be a friend and kind of nurture him through the heartbreak, but no contact. You just got to cut it off, because that dynamic, that enmeshment that happens is so hard to get out of energetically. Like when you get out, no contact. And the other thing, at the risk of sounding woo-woo, airy-fairy, I will tell you, you need to cut cords. And it doesn't have to be some, big ceremony that you go through and all of this. You just close your eyes, right? And just imagine that person in front of you, and imagine like there's this invisible cord, this, cord between you guys, an energetic cord, and you just cut it and let them have their energy back, and you bring your energy back, and you send them love, and you send yourself love, and you let go. And you let go. And just in doing that, that helps you get over the heartbreak or the disappointment, the sadness because things didn't go how you thought they were going to go, whatever we might be feeling as humans, right? Because we have a varying degree of emotion about different things, right? But allow yourself to feel that. But do call your energy back, because if you don't call your energy back, you can get sucked back in. And I'm not saying sucked back in to that particular relationship, but you can get sucked back in to that kind of energy. And if you're still dabbling in that energy, it might not be him or her, but it's going to be one of them that's going to come in, because we haven't called our energy back. We got to call it back and clean it up. Period. Okay. And then the other thing is, don't fall into the blame game or the guilt trip. You're not blaming the other person and, oh, they were crap and da 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 da. You're not doing that. Like, they're humans too. Whether they have narcissistic traits or not, they're still human. We're not going to get caught up in that blame game. You don't know what their story is that has them being a narcissistic person, right? So regardless of that, we're not going to blame them. And you know what else we're not going to do? We're not going to blame ourselves. We're not going to blame ourselves like I was trying to do. Like, oh, you should have known better. You've been on this spiritual walk for all these years. What the hell were you thinking? We're not going to blame them. And we're not going to blame ourselves. And we're not going to feel guilty for allowing ourselves to fall into that or to go through with that. Well, however you want to label it, we're not going to feel guilty. We're going to feel excited that through it all, it worked out for us. You know what I'm saying? Because even though that kind of connection, it hurts, it's draining, it is, like I said, contrast is the first step to manifestation. So I know that I have created a partner that's going to freaking rock my world and knock my socks off because of what I learned, what I've experienced. And I know that I am even more amazing now because I let myself feel the crap, face the crap, and transmute the crap. Like, get rid of it, change it, clear it up, clear my energy. I didn't spend time in blaming that person and not taking accountability for my own energy, because whether we like it or not, like, we are vibrational matches to situations, and that's just the way that is. And so clearing up our energy allows us to manifest different and better things. And so the other thing I just want to kind of touch on real quick. Hey Rhonda, good to see you. Hey Terry. You want to kind of look out how to not get back in a relationship like this. Like, how can we keep from doing this again? Like, now we're out, now we're clear, our energy's good. How can we keep from getting back into this kind of connection? Well, again, self-love. I mean, I talk about it, and this is what's so important that we see is the transparency and the vulnerability. Like, just because I teach this doesn't mean that they say that we teach what we're here to learn, right? And so I still am human and I still am learning, right? So I realized, wow, like, I fell off in my self-love practices. I fell off in letting myself be loved and adored by myself. And I began to let this person's view and judgment of me taint how I was viewing myself. And I was feeling more and more bad about myself. And when I would feel bad about myself, then I wouldn't want to show up and I wouldn't want to share because I'm just in a crap hole, nobody wants to hear from me right now, so this was one of those things that you have to be dedicated to self-love. And I'm not saying if you're not, you're going to end up with a narcissistic person. I'm just saying that everything in life is better when we're dedicated to our self-love and being our most authentic self, You have to learn how to say no. We've been taught like, oh, we don't want to say no, or we'll say maybe, or what. Like, no is an acceptable answer to certain situations and things, so learn how to say no and learn how to feel good about saying no, because you're not saying no, you're saying yes to yourself. Sometimes saying no to other people is how you say yes to yourself, period. And you have to say yes to yourself to be of any value to anybody else anyway, right? You also want to learn how to set and keep boundaries. And with this, setting boundaries doesn't come naturally, so to speak, and it doesn't always feel good or feel easy. It's like, oh, if I set this boundary, are they gonna get pissed off? Are they not gonna like me as much, or maybe not like me at all? So, in order to keep from getting in this kind of connection again, we have to learn how to set and keep boundaries, okay? Just shout out to Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist. If you are not following her, she's on all platforms. Follow her because she's like the master at teaching about boundaries. I don't have time to go into all that in this video, but it's essential that we learn how to set and keep boundaries to keep from getting in this kind of connection again, okay? Learn how to recognize red flags and don't excuse them when you see them. Don't over spiritualize them. When you see a red flag, get curious, become really aware, and don't ignore them, because if you ignore them, You're going to see more of them. Promise you. Okay? Learn how to trust yourself and follow through on your intuitive guidance. Learn how to trust yourself. And learning how to trust yourself, ironically enough, happens when you feel something and you know something and you don't do it. And then you see, oh, okay, well, maybe that, you know, yes, things will work out for your highest good, always. But then, you know, like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, you know. And I know now that that was my intuition guiding me. And we think that our intuition is always telling us things that we want to hear. Well, that's a misconception, you know. Your intuition is your guidance. It's guiding you. So it might warn you. A lot of times it's going to warn you. And it's not a warning like a scary thing like, oh, you're in danger. It's just this probably isn't going to be what you think it's going to be. This probably isn't going to feel really good to you. You probably would be better off, you know, if you said no to this, you know what I mean? But the really beautiful thing about God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is that all of it is factored in. All of it works together, right? So just keep that in mind. But when you see the red flags, do not ignore them. Don't try to over-spiritualize them. Yeah, learn to trust yourself and your intuition. So that was the last note that I had. Let me just real see. Yeah, so that's everything that I had written down that I wanted to share. I like to take notes so I can kind of stay focused. I do have a few minutes. If anything came up for you and you have any questions, I might could answer them live. I'm going to kind of see what some of the comments are. If you guys have anything that you want to kind of share and chime in on, I'm here to do that. But that's kind of, does that all saying how true if everything happens for a reason? Yeah, everything happens for a reason. But the reason is always your growth. The reason is always to bring you back to self-love. Because you cannot love other people until you love yourself. You just can't. It's not cliche. It's not the new spiritual trend. It's the truth. You can't love other people until you really love yourself, right? Okay, let's see if I have any other questions. Thank you guys for tuning in. Yes, Anthony's saying, like, no contact and cut the cords. Like, that's really huge to get out of this kind of thing, guys. Blair saying, repeat, no one is going to steal my energy anymore. Perfect. Love it, Blair. Perfect. Yes. Perfect. Yes, absolutely. So I appreciate y'all tuning in and being a safe space for me to share. I hope that what I've shared has enlightened or inspired you in some way, and that you, I love you too, Blair. Thank you. That you are able to maybe see some of yourself in me, you know, and know that if you are in this situation, you haven't done anything wrong, and that you do need to know that you are good enough to live the life that you want to live. Because if you're with a narcissistic person, the last thing you feel is good enough. You know, if you don't feel it, they're certainly not going to make you feel it. So I want to remind you right here, right now, that you are good enough, that you are worthy of love, that your life isn't fucked up. You're not fucked up. Okay? That you are worthy of love. And not only are you worthy of love, you are love. Period. Okay? So allow yourself to just feel the love radiating from me and know that I believe in you. And all of the fairies of the universe believe in you and are on your side. Ask for help. Ask for guidance. Ask, and you shall receive. You will be able to get out if that is your heart's desire. But you will have to make tough choices. You will have to be willing to make someone mad. or to hurt someone's feelings because they didn't get what they wanted. You have to pick yourself first. Love yourself enough to let go and move on. Okay? Allow yourself to be supported. I'm here. If you want to reach out, I will do my best to help you through anything that I can help you with in this situation. Within the best of my well-being, I will do that, okay? So I just want to send so much love. You're welcome, Cindy. I love you all, and I hope that this helped you. And I feel better having shared it, even though it was hard and embarrassing. I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to be like, Jennuine Love, what were you thinking? But hey, we all have a journey, right? And all of us, it's important for us to share, whether it's this type of story or any type of story. Like, it's important for us to share, because when we do, it frees us up, but it also helps other people, because it allows them to see, like, we're all human. We're all in this thing called life together. Compassion and love and understanding are required, right? Makes life so much better. I'm going to tune off now. I'll answer any questions in the comments. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you next time. Namaste.